Essay 64, Refutations of the Standard Theory of Electrodynamics. Now that the Omnia Opera has been completed on AIS.us and archived worldwide, the interested reader can study the collected refutations of the standard theory available from 1992 onwards in the original papers, reviews and books. These works of mine refer to many works by many distinguished colleagues who also refute the standard theory in many ways. So why are we all wrong and why must CERN be right? That is one of those awkward questions. The answer is that CERN adheres to dogma in order to maintain and fund itself at all costs, to the taxpayers of bankrupt nations. The standard theory is one of incredible complexity and obscurity. It has to be to survive, and in order that no one can understand it. No one, that is, except the occasional dedicated scholar. Incredible complexity is not physics. William of Ockham realized that in medieval times and was branded a heretic, more or less immediately. Total nonsense is built into the standard theory and is rolled out constantly as dogma. That word again. The theory of electrodynamics was put into shape by my civil list predecessor, Oliver Heaviside. The Maxwell equations are not due to Maxwell, they are due to Heaviside. Maxwell provided the inspiration for them in about 20 quaternionic equations, greatly simplified later by Heaviside's vectors, one of his many brilliant contributions to physics, mathematics and engineering. So I refer to them as the Maxwell-Heaviside MH equations. Heaviside was a genius, but an awkward one, so he is more or less removed from physics history. The most appalling nonsense in the standard theory is the idea of a particle that has no mass, despite the fact that it has mass. This particle is known as the photon. In order for the theory to work, it cannot have mass, but as shown in UFT 202, its mass can be measured easily. It is order of magnitude 10 to the power minus 57 kilograms, the lightest particle in nature. Other estimates make it much heavier. If the photon did not have mass, it would not be attracted by the sun, and light would not be deflected. Unfortunately for CERN and the boson of Higgs, it is deflected. In order for that mythical mass-giving boson to exist, the photon must not have mass. By now, all the school children are giggling again. What kind of a loony bin is this CERN? The massless photon is needed for something called U1 sector symmetry, which grew out of the ideas of Heaviside later developed by Weil into gauge theory. This U1 symmetry is built into the standard theory of electrodynamics, which relies on mass not being mass after all. The U1 gauge theory means that the E2 little group of the Poincaré group is inferred incorrectly physically, is correct mathematically, but it is physical nonsense. This is the group of rotations and translations in a plane, meaning in turn that the world is flat. It can only have 2 dimensions. That is news to any sailor. A photon with no mass means that there are no longitudinal modes of electromagnetic radiation in the vacuum, meaning that the field is flat. It exists only in 2 dimensions out of 4. A mysterious magic known as the Gupta-Bloiler condition is imposed to take away 2 dimensions. That leads to a chaotic mess when attempts are made to quantize such a field canonically. When I first inferred the B3 field in 1992, Um, I was as innocent as a school child gazing out on the Ithaca snow. I actually assumed that three-dimensional space is three dimensions, and out of that came B3. Just over a year later, in January 1993, Jean-Pierre Vigier wrote to say that the longitudinal B3 was just what he had been waiting for because it means finite photon mass. So from that point onwards, the B3 theory developed rapidly. Essentially all the problems of the standard theory are cured in one way or another in the Omnia opera. It was shown in UFT 158 and following that finite photon mass means the end of the standard particle theory at CERN. As soon as photon mass is considered properly, the theory disintegrates into a wild mess. Considerations of the conjugate product of nonlinear optics also refute the U1 gauge theory, as do the antisymmetry laws of ECE theory. In fact, nearly everything refutes CERN completely. All these refutations by distinguished colleagues and myself are ignored with studied desperation by the CERN laboratory, where any event of any kind at all is trumpeted all over humanity as if it were important. CERN never seems to notice that there is fuel rationing around the corner and that half of Europe is bankrupt. With physics like this, who needs Nero? We await with bated pencils the announcement of the God particle, which does not exist but which ensures funding. Sure enough, this announcement was made about a year ago, to be met with resounding silence among intellectuals.